Hello, Bucharest. Hey.
Hello.
Oh. Hey. Let me see who's down here.
By the way, Dario just flew in, so he's literally walking in to all of us.
I have been here for 3 hours and just took a shower. So super excited to hop in. So today we're going to be talking about reimagining design. And I have my notes here with me, so bear with me if there's any technical glitches. Oh, shit, go back. Okay. So, today we find ourselves at a precipice. The mechanical age, which began back in the 1600s with Copernicus, when he discovered heliocentrism, that the Earth actually revolves around the sun. Unbeknownst to Copernicus, what he actually set up was something that we call the mechanical age. The mechanical age that then led to the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and this current technological age that we find ourselves in. But what he also did was make science the end-all, be-all of truth. He took what at his time was an earthbound subjectivity into a celestial objectivism, right? Something where we use reason and logic, a fealty to a higher order, something that was perfect. And we're reaping the benefits of that, right? Like, we have incredible technological innovations, we have global efficiencies, we have expanded our vision, both microscopically and telescopically. But concurrent with that ingenuity, we also live with the artifacts of a fealty to logic and reason. While we love our iPhones, while we love our cars and the incredible buildings and the incredible technology that we've created, what Copernicus actually created was a way of thinking about creation and exploration that just made creation and exploration ends of themselves and turned human beings and Earth's resources into fungible commodities. Something that only has worth and is worth development and investment as long as it's useful. How has design contributed to the problem you're trying to solve? This is a question I actually asked some of my cohort while I was up at Harvard, landscape architects, people working in urban design and development. When we think about climate change, when we think about poverty, what role has design actually played in creating the problems that we're trying to solve? Let me go back. And design is not benign, right? Design is not benign in this enterprise. It's worked hard, and it's worked hand in hand with commercial industries and state power that created the societal challenges, the challenges that we face of increasing speed, the blind spots, the permutations, the overconsumption, the planned obsolescence. Let me go back. Is all a part of design thinking. And yet, couched within those very systems are the tools and the resources to unlock the transformative power of design. And how we address this current age requires a rigorous audit of the past and also a radical imagination for the future. For design to be transformative, we have to fundamentally transform the way we view design. So, let me take you back. This is baby Dario, right there on the left. And this is me with my cousins. And we're growing up in a place in the United States called East St. Louis. Now, East St. Louis is on the other side of the river of a much more known city, St. Louis. And East St. Louis was a predominantly black neighborhood. And for anyone working in architecture or design, this would be an example of what we call environmental racism, right? Where we use urban design and landscape architecture to separate people, the untouchables, those that we feel less valuable. This, we were on the other side of the river. Sometimes it's on the other side of the railroad tracks. And that is an image of my mother and my sister on Easter Sunday. Don't they look great? They still look great. And that was our first house in East St. Louis. Now, when I was 5, we moved just 30 minutes away to a predominantly white neighborhood. And what was interesting about that, just 30 minutes away, we encountered resources that were so much more vast, so much more funded, that we thought my elementary school was the high school, and that my sister's high school was the college. And that, in many ways, shows the big gap between white America and black America. It's almost 2 different countries. Let's see, where am I? Here we go. And if you go to Google Maps now and look at this house, this is what it looks like. And as devastating as it looks, this is actually not just a house, but it's a symbol for those who remained, those who we left behind, my cousins who we left behind. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here in Romania. That's how I made it to Harvard. I am a perfect example of the ways in which environment shapes outcomes, the ways in which design shapes outcomes. So, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And just blow it all out. Let's do that one more time. Take a deep breath in. Hold. And blow it all out. Look around you. Look at the floor. Look at the building. I just wanted to shift your gaze because I think we should have a new definition of design. Everything you're visioning right now, this floor, the platforms, the building, this camera, my shirt, these shoes, the sidewalk you walked on, the street you drove on to get here, was once an idea in someone's head. Sounds simple, but rarely do we think about it. And if that's design, then we're existing in embodied thought. We are moving through solid consciousness. And so for me, my definition of design is one that's a bit more simple, but much more expansive and universal. Design is simply the technology to bring thought into space and time. When we traditionally think of design, we think of, I don't know what, the serpentine structures of Zaha Hadid, or the information hierarchy on websites, right? Or, I don't know, the cool, slick machined, iPhone in my pocket. But how do we, wait, hold on. All design is, that's a misspelling. They did say this is unfinished, right? Okay, cool. But when we think about design, and design is simply the technology that brings thought into space and time, well, then it goes just beyond the built environment, right? It goes beyond landscape architecture. It goes beyond iPhones. But it also goes into language, right? Language is a tool that we use to translate a stream of consciousness. How is language shaping our reality? Right now, I'm speaking English. Hopefully, most of you all understand it. But the syntax of English requires that there is a subject that's acting upon an object. I don't know if that's true or not. We don't know if that's true or not. But it's the way in which we're forced to view our reality. By literally using this language, we're forced to separate ourselves from each other. We're forced to separate ourselves from nature. And in what ways has that shown up in the way we engage with the environment, the ways we engage with the earth? It also goes into social constructs, the identities that we hold. What does it mean to be a man or a woman or Romanian or middle class or a lawyer? These are also pre-existing constructs. And I feel that many of the frustrations that we have are because of these pre-existing constructs. Our frustrations with these things that were designed before we got here, but designed without us in mind. When you were born, they were like, it's a girl, right? And all of these things start happening. We're going to get blue. We're going to put her here. We're going to dress her here. None of that has anything to do with you. But they were decided for you, right? They existed before you got here. But they were not thinking of you at the same time. And when we try to attempt to reconcile these frustrations, both individually and also collectively, how we reconcile these systems and these frameworks, masculinity becomes a prefabricated construction, and a book full of language does become a built environment. To fully unlock the transformative power of design, it's imperative that we figure out, how did we get here? And how do we leverage it to bring about more liberative and equitable futures? This is supposed to say all design is predictive, not productive. But it is productive. But this is a phrase, all design is yeah, you can't even squint your eyes and try to figure that out. Yeah. All design is predictive. This is a phrase I heard years ago, and it completely shifted the way that I viewed the world. I walked outside, and all of a sudden, I saw the world as a series of decisions that were being made, that were predicting and dictating how I would move through space, right? You being a girl, it already laid out the path of how you were supposed to show up. But through my work as, a creative director, photographer, working in fashion, kind of existing in academia, I've come up with what I call the 4 generators of cultural design. Oh, wait, shit. Oh, that part. We're just gonna skip past it. That's about, what happens when you're a short guy. I think they have a complex named after that. So, the 4 generators of cultural design: the image, the built environment, the spectacle, and the institution. Now, these are not discrete categories. They play on each other and off of each other. But I think when we start to think about how we can actually leverage design, we have to understand what makes the world we find ourselves in. Let's start with the image. So, photography. My boy Roland Barthes. Does anybody know about Roland Barthes? Hey, hey, hey. So Roland Barthes calls the camera a clock for seeing. But for me, I see it as also a built environment. And my work as an editorial and art photographer, I use it as a social practice. I use it to repopulate the data set of images that wash over us. How can we come to understand ourselves and leverage these devices, right? So I use something like the magazine cover and the scale that it provides in order to do my work. For example, in 2020, June, I was commissioned to shoot the cover of Vanity Fair featuring Viola Davis. Now, do a little time machine with me. Go back, 2020. We were all stuck in lockdown. But at the same time, there was global unrest. There was a gentleman named George Floyd who was killed by the police in the United States, and it unleashed a torrent of protests around the world with Black Lives Matter. And so what I decided to do was construct an image using fashion, history, celebrity, identity to not only reveal the beauty of Viola Davis, but also confront America's dark past. And I used it to project Black bodies, Black images, Black women, and Black struggle into a place of beauty. But we can't be better than the tools we use, right? Like if you're an incredible painter, but the brush has one hair, right? Like you can only go so far. And so I decided to leverage the tools that we actually use. And photography and its history notoriously does not center people of color in the development of its tools. Film emulsions never actually rendered brown and Black skin well until furniture designers complained that their photographs of their wooden tables were showing up muddy, right? And so I decided to team up with Adobe Lightroom. And with that, created a set of presets centering Black and brown individuals. And what was cool about it was because it didn't just work with Black people, right? It also worked in the global South, all the way to Brazil, all the way through Southeast Asia. The majority of the people in the world who had actually never been considered in photography. The environment and the spectacle. So, design is predictive. It shapes how we move through space, where our bodies belong and where they don't belong. How many times have you gone up to an art gallery and you're like, wait, can I go in? Wait, is this free? Like, I don't know, right? The design of the building itself is saying, stay out without saying it. And so, hold on, there's an arrow, got it, I can see it. And for Black individuals, design has played a critical role in actually creating this idea of Blackness. It reifies Blackness over and over again every time you reach a horizon of humanity, from the design of the slave ships to housing projects, to the prison cell. And in my creative work with the fashion brand Pierre Moss, we specifically leverage the built environment and the spectacle in order to unlock new possibilities. We specifically choose venues like this one at Weeksville in Brooklyn, which is a historic Black neighborhood made of free Black people and formerly enslaved Black people that was about to be lost and torn down. And what we did was actually create a fashion show. A fashion show that would, one, allow Weeksville to stay, but then, again, populate the data set of people who know that this place even exists. We also chose King's Theater, also in Brooklyn, a near-demolished former movie palace that was recently restored, and again, held a fashion show there. And most recently, this is Villa Lewaro. This is the home of Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker was the first Black millionaire, self-made millionaire, in the United States. And the home was also built by the first Black architects to get their license in New York City. This was supposed to be a couture show for Paris Fashion Week, but we decided not to do it in Paris. We wanted to keep it local. And in that way, again, this history, these people, these stories do not get erased. The Institute, my favorite. So, institutions. What are institutions? What's an institution? No one knows what an institution is? Just give me one, an example. The church, perfect. What's another one? University, exactly. Parliament, the government, museums, libraries, right? Institutions are the places where cultural knowledge production is generated. They are machines. They are machines not only for learning, but they are cultural sorting hats, right? Creating hierarchies of value, deciding what gets to stay. And they also generate research that define culture and advance society. They create the data set of information, playgrounds for the mind, and they play a key role in transforming society. But also, they work with design, both structurally and systematically. Not to mention, they're tied to the state and corporate and industrial interests. And as an educator, I teach at Parsons School of Design, I'm always after a pedagogy of vision. How do we better see the world around us? And by better seeing what is around us, it gives us the ability to use our energies and apply them to actually make impact, to create the impact that we want to see in the world. I always say, if you punch at ghosts, you'll never make impact. And so I designed a course to do just that. It's called Decolonizing the Gaze: Fashion, Race, and the Aesthetics of Visual Design. And for me, it was important that undergraduates not only understand the world of design that they're entering, but also make sure that they're not perpetuating hidden oppression in the things that they design, in the things that they photograph, in the spaces that they build. And the premise of the course is that images are not benign. And for me, I define images as anything that falls on the retinal plane, not just still images, not just moving images, but anything that we're visioning. And inside of those images are codes, hidden codes that program our mind, actually, They define our values. They decide what's beautiful or not. Who life deserves to be saved or not. How do we define order? What is orderly to us and why? And as fun as it is to work within existing systems, sometimes you just have to make your own shit. And so in 2019, I founded the Institute of Black Imagination.
To design a way out of this exclusionary system, we need blackness. As expansive, complex, and diverse as the cosmos, as graceful as the way we move through spaces. It's alchemy, transforming base materials into cultural gold. It's subversive, hacking a world not designed with us in mind. It's exploration, seeking infinite possibilities. It's reinvention, it's world history, it's the way forward. Welcome to your Black imagination.
That is a product of Mesa. Thank you, Leisha. We miss you. Oh, hey. So what is the Institute of Black Imagination? It is an international collaborative with a mission to expand the creative potential of Black and brown thought leaders from throughout the diaspora. It originated as an archive of 2,000 books that I inherited from this incredible artist, painter, sculptor, dancer, choreographer named Jeffrey Holder. And when I encountered his loft, and I went in and I saw these stacks of books and these costumes and these paintings, I saw how much input it took to create an output like that. I realized that what Jeffrey left behind was a blueprint, was a roadmap to creativity. And so what would it look like to open that up to other Black and brown creatives? And so we bring together dancers, writers, architects, astrophysicists to explore, challenge, and reimagine the world that we inhabit. And we're in Romania, and it's not a lot of brown folk in here. And so you're probably wondering, like, okay, like, why are you harping on Black folk? What are you thinking about? What are you talking about? Well, there's a gentleman, another Brazilian, Paulo Freire, who was a Brazilian philosopher, and he said that the burden of liberation is actually on the oppressed, not the oppressor, because only the strength built by being oppressed do you have the power to liberate everyone. And that a restoration of humanity, and that liberation is actually not about a transfer of power from the oppressor to the oppressed, because then the oppressed just become the new oppressor. I won't name names, but you know the country I'm thinking about. However, it's about a restoration of humanity, because by restoring humanity to those from which it was taken, you also restore humanity to those who lost it in the taking. And in the US, we can see the ways in which the oppressed have actually paved the way for many people to thrive. When I'm in New York trying to hail a cab, and the Southeast Asian cab driver, who will not stop for me, literally wouldn't be allowed in the country if it were not for the civil rights movement. Or the guys dancing shirtless in Chelsea for the gay pride parade wouldn't be there if it wasn't for a trans woman of color who started the Stonewall riots movement. And although we just repealed it in the US, affirmative action was something that began with Black folk, but actually white women are the largest beneficiaries of affirmative action. And so in many ways, I'm hedging a bet and saying by providing this group of people with the tools and resources that they need, we all benefit. And also, Black imagination goes beyond race, actually. It's a way of moving through the world. If you look at the sky at night and you see the stars, you can only see them because they're couched in blackness. It is actually about moving through the interstitial spaces. That is Black imagination. It's something that we all have. And so at the Institute, we created a podcast back in 2020, over 70 episodes, listened to in 160 countries, 175,000 downloads. But what if you can't physically make it to the space to find the books? And with Mesa, we created a digital interactive site. That any of you can access on your phone right now and find out all of the cool, interesting projects that folk are doing from around the world. Just open your browser and go to blackimagination.com. I just kind of gave you the key how to get in, so don't come at me. And then later this year, we open the IBI at the Oculus in New York City. And this will be a place where not only will we have the archive, but we'll have design objects, furniture, industrial design by Black designers. I mean, if we know what Black music sounds like, then what does Black space feel like? My goal is to leverage design and technology and use it to reshape how we individually and collectively understand ourselves. It's also about bringing a diversity of thought to the design landscape. We are sitting and existing in a singular imagination, a space and a world and a city that's designed by a very small sliver of people. Who says the cities have to look like this? Who says that they have to operate like this? There are so many ways of being that we can unlock. We also exist in the blind spots of that singular imagination, as I showed in the images earlier. I interrogate these systems and design experiences, technology, and sometimes, yes, institutions, to shine a light in the dark corners of our collective psyche that produces the artifacts, of a seemingly fixed reality. But it's not fixed. If we exist in embodied ideals, if we're living in solid thought, well, this thought is no different or more valid than the thought that you have in your head. Just because it existed when you got here doesn't mean that it's not malleable. And for me, it makes the world very light. When we think about these generators of cultural design, the image, the spectacle, the environment, the institution like, I don't know, the royal family, right? Like, it's not real, guys. It's not real. My iPhone has more materiality. It's heavier than the British monarchy, right? It's just reified, what? By the spectacle, the coronation, by images. The future requires redefining the design landscape and understanding its existing codes. And how can they be implemented as a tool of transformation and liberation? I imagine a future of self-actualized citizens with the ability to inhabit spaces that affirm their existence, providing agency to transform their own environments, because they then have the tools, the resources, and the vocabulary to better articulate what they see. And this is all of our work, It's all of our work. The world we live in has been designed, and we must design our way out of it. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, Dario.
How do we do, time-wise?
We're good. We're good.
Yay.
We got 5 minutes. We're good. That was incredible.
Oh, thank you.
I'd love to ask you.
Yeah.
So I want to repeat a statement that you said here. That design is the technology to bring thought into space and time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a rigorous audit of the past and a radical imagination for the future.
Mm-hmm.
I love this definition of design as a designer myself. But when you are starting a new project,
Yeah.
what is the first step or one step that you take to do a rigorous audit of the past and step forward into a radical imagination of the future?
I listen. I just listen and listen and listen and listen. I listen for the voids. I listen for what's not being said. I ask people, what would they like to see? Actually, the space that we're creating in New York, we're doing a soft opening, what we're calling a listening phase. And Apple, thank you, Apple, donated iPads for us. And there will just be stations prompted with questions, asking people, what would you like to see here? What's missing in your life? What can you imagine? And we'll take those answers and bring them into the design or the programming, but for me, it's about radical listening. And also just for me, a love of history. I think history, in so many ways, provides a lens into what the future could look like. And for some reason, I feel like we have cultural amnesia. I don't know how we forget things that happened 4 years ago, but I'm like, if you understood what happened 100 years ago, then you have a better understanding of humanity, human consciousness, the way we evolve, the way we use technology, and we repeat it over and over and over again.
Absolutely. So you also stated that Black imagination goes beyond race.
Absolutely.
And that it's a way of navigating the world. When you envision a future becoming more into being in that kind of imagination, what do you see?
What do I see? I mean, to be honest, it's hard for me to really define it, but what I do see is, and what I expect actually, and what I'm excited about, is how would women design cities? How would having more women create spaces that not only affirm them, but make it easier for, I don't know, mothers to navigate the city? We just recorded a podcast episode with a woman, Danielle Wood, who teaches the Space-Enabled Lab at MIT. And so she's working with students and helping them build satellites. She's an aeronautical engineer, but she also teaches them Black feminist thought so that they're thinking about this as they think about colonizing Mars, colonizing the moon. I think we are in an age that is definitely deprived of the divine feminine.
Absolutely.
And it is so necessary. And so for me, I can't even really imagine. I mean, yes, I can think of, hydroponic farming and, more localized growing and providing people with jobs that they actually love to do versus what their parents told them that they should do or what they think they should do. But I'm excited by the possibilities.
Yeah. The multi-dimension of all those possibilities. Divine feminine, yes. So let's open it up to the audience. Who has a question for Dario? Raise your hand. Yes, this gentleman over here. We'll give a mic.
Hi, this was incredibly nourishing, and I want to thank you for this talk. It was beautiful. I also went to a wine tasting, so I'm not particularly articulate right now, but I'll try to
Is the wine tasting over?
Probably. We'll figure something out.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask, let's say, I'm sort of wondering, when you're in this business of reimagining the future, rethinking what thoughts we should put into the world and crystallize. What's your relationship to questions? How do you decide? We're in the business of questioning things around, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to question.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize? How do you decide or figure out what's a good question? How you embody a question? How does that look for you?
That's a good question.
Good on the note.
You know, when I think about, questioning, I think it's important, but I also think that by the interrogation, you're not eliminating. It doesn't always equate to eliminating. I think it's just about deciding what we want to move forward with. And personally, I feel that none of us are responsible for the world that we inherited. None of us are. My favorite question is, what will you do now, knowing what you now know? That's all you're responsible for. Because once you know it, now you're on the hook. Now you are responsible. And if you decide not to act, if you decide to ignore, then that's on you. And now you're guilty. And so I think the act of questioning is, leaning into your curiosity is the best thing about anything. Curiosity around an individual. Curiosity around how do we get here? Curiosity around wait, how is English actually shaping the way that I view the world? How does my identity as queer, as black, as female, I'm not female, but that's not how I identify. But how is that shaping my reality? How is it setting up a series of decisions that I think I decided, but I didn't decide? How is my attraction to this individual actually been shaped by beauty norms and actually not my own desire? And so I think what I'm probably getting to say is the first thing to question is yourself. Start with you. I think there's a Buddhist quote about, be the change you want to see. Well, maybe not Buddhist, but yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
So what will you do now, knowing what you know now, and knowing that the world is still unfinished? Thank you so much, Dario Calmese.
Yeah, of course.
It's wonderful to hear you speak.